伝染病棟を回せておけば人間どもは学校に近づけまい。
Wow. Even the villains underestimate the selfishness of humanity.
あら？停電かしら？
おかしいな、こんな時間に。
Japan is so advanced that power outages are supposed to work around their schedule.
俺が護衛しているあの宝石はポリネシアの伝説の中に出てくる不思議な宝石なんだ。
宝石とキレイだは俺がもらった。連れて行き。キレイだ。
You had one job, and that was to protect the jewel, which you apparently couldn't even do. What's up, everyone? I'm the Kaiju no Kami, and today I'm going to be taking a look at 1979's Kamen Rider Skyrider. Or just Kamen Rider? Or New Kamen Rider? Or I don't know what the hell they decided to call it. Skyrider. Toei had originally ended the Kamen Rider franchise in 1975 with Stronger. However, fans wanted more, and as such, Toei decided to reboot the series for a new generation, simply titling the next iteration as Kamen Rider. They rehired Masaru Igami to write the show, only to feel dissatisfied with its performance and fired him halfway through, even though he was doing exactly what they wanted. From there, Takashi Edzure was put in charge of the show, who ended up turning it into a sillier series that would constantly feature a team up with a previous Kamen Rider for an episode or two. They should have just named the show Kamen Rider Brave and the Bold. So how is Skyrider? Was the rider change a good thing or a bad thing? Let's take a look and find out. The heroes. Before I talk about Skyrider, I want to get what is hands down, as of this point, the worst Kamen Rider character I have ever encountered. The trashy waste of human skin, horrifying, terrible, shit-tastic Ganganji.
わしも仲間に入れてえな。スイカ持ってきたんや。あった。頭割れた。俺1280円もしたんです。
Ganganji is some dumbass who wears a samurai suit and has no personality whatsoever. This is how I feel every time this dipshit appears on screen. I'm not sure what is the worst attribute in regard to Ganganji. Maybe it's how inept he is when fighting villains while proclaiming to be some experienced hero.
何をすんねんこの怪人。麺が取れてしもてるがな。顔が分かってしもたら謎のガンガンジーが誰や分かってしまうやないかいな。ほんまにもう。
That's stupid.
Or it could be how he ended up sabotaging an entire plan our real heroes had with sneaking into an enemy base thanks to his incompetence.
こいつは潜入は難しいな。しかしそうは言ってられませんよ。ガンガンジ。バカ、大声出すな。
あたあたあたあたあたあたあたあたあた。
ヒロシ行け。あいつは俺が助ける。
You're stupid.
Then again, it could just be because he's poorly written and serves no purpose beyond what I guess is supposed to be comic relief.
それなら強いところを見せてくれよ。
おお、見せたろやないかいな。ありコマンドの一人や二人。やっとあちょっと。
そうだ。
おお、何すんねん。
Stop being stupid!
I used to think Kiryu from Hibiki and Shunpei from Wizard were the worst Kamen Rider characters ever made, and then this dumpster fire showed up. Even this one reporter guy who appeared in the first 12 or so episodes of Skyrider just to show off some freaky shocked facial expressions had more depth than this stupid samurai. Of course, Ganganji is just one of the many problems that inhabit Skyrider, for none of the secondary cast members are at all enjoyable to watch. The first 13 episodes feature a scientist the villains want on their side who acts as Skyrider's mentor figure until he suddenly disappears, leaving a note behind that says he has left the country. Okay, so he was pointless. Replacing him is the owner of a coffee shop named Ganjiro Tani. Tani occasionally does stuff. There isn't anything of true significance, as actor Nobuo Tsukamoto isn't given much to work with. He seems like he is just there because Toei needed to have a cheap dollar store version of Tachibana, and apparently Shido, the aforementioned scientist, was not worthy enough to be the new Tachibana, even though he was a far more interesting character and concept than this borefest.
シド君から話はすっかり聞いた。仮面ライダーのこともな。俺の家族はネオショッカーにやられたんだ。
And that is as much development as he will ever receive. Also assisting Tani is his cook and the usual Kamen Rider cheerleader squad. Sometimes there's 2 girls, sometimes 3, and none of them are the least bit memorable.
調べるべきよ。私たちも頑張ったから。俺も。
3 girls get injured a quarter into the show and are replaced, but I believe one of them came back at the halfway point to continue helping, while the others were never mentioned again. But I could be wrong because they all look alike and none of them have any identifiable personalities. With those out of the way, let's finally talk about our main hero, Hiroshi Tsukaba, played by Hiroaki Murakami. Hiroshi kicks the show off as a tragic hero, for his friends are murdered right at the start in a most brutal fashion. To make matters worse, the villains, Neo Shocker, disintegrate their bodies so that Hiroshi cannot even give them a proper funeral.
一体誰がみんなをこんな目に。
They capture him and have Professor Shido turn Hiroshi into a grasshopper-esque cyborg, expecting him to be another one of their minions, only for the opposite to occur. Hiroshi declares war against Neo Shocker, naming himself Kamen Rider. That's all there really is to Hiroshi's character. He loses his friends and fights Neo Shocker. He doesn't have much in the way of development past this initial hurdle, making him a very bland protagonist. At least, until they reveal to us that his parents were killed by Neo Shocker 3 years prior to the show's events. In episode 52 of 54. To make matters worse, he apparently has always known Neo Shocker killed them, though he never knew they existed until the events of episode 1, which takes place at least 2 years after his parents' death. Clearly this was Edzure's last chance to make the audience care about Hiroshi, which he failed at. Miserably. Hiroshi is unlike other Kamen Riders, for he has the ability to fly, hence the name Skyrider. It does seem rather moot considering how he drops the flying aspect around the first quarter.
少女の澄んだ心には仮面ライダーが優しいお兄ちゃんと重なって見えていた。
わあ、高い。飛行機に乗ってるみたい。
From then on, he solely travels by motorcycle, making him no different than any of the previous riders the audience has been graced with. He does have a striking design, for I really think the browns and greens complement each other. Not that it matters, for he upgrades his costume around the halfway point to brighter colors that come across more generic than striking.
今ここに七輪ライダーのすべての力がスカイライダーの体内に流れ
Narratively, this upgrade is meant to signify how much stronger he has become. Realistically, you would never know it was meant to be an upgrade given he doesn't do anything extraordinary with the new duds he didn't already do before. He still doesn't even fly, even when confronted by monsters who can, such as a pair of flying squirrels.
Skyrider V3
As I mentioned in the beginning, the previous Kamen Riders all made constant appearances throughout Skyrider's entirety. The villains. Given that Toei named the villains of the series Neo Shocker, it's hard to believe it was meant to be a full-on reboot of the original series. After all, if it was truly meant to be a reboot, why would they call themselves Neo Shocker? Neo translates into new, therefore their name is New Shocker, meaning they are not the old Shocker. Thus, Shocker clearly existed before in order for them to choose Neo Shocker as their name. Not that it matters, as Neo Shocker is a terrible organization. And I don't mean terrible as in they're awful people. They are that. But terrible as in, boy do these villains suck. The Great Leader, who continues to be voiced by Goro Naya even though it's supposed to be a new Shocker, is barely even in the show.
改造手術は失敗だ。ネオショッカーにとって危険人物になる恐れがある。直ちに処分するのだ。
In fact, I feel like the series forgot there was a Great Leader until the last few episodes. And then the reveal of what Great Leader actually is beyond dumb, and is just a ripoff of the plot twist they did at the end of Stronger. It's like Edzure walked up to Igami and asked, "Hey, can I copy your homework?" The first general of Neo Shocker is the somewhat threatening General Monster.
お前ごときにやられるわしではない。
Shinzo Hota did a good job of portraying this one-eyed villain who would often go out onto the battlefield to take on Hiroshi. He looks like an evil Nazi captain, which raises his threat persona quite a bit.
大層な口を聞くな仮面ライダー。さあぼつぼつ地獄に落ちてもらおうか。
I also liked his robotic arm. He does have a monster form of a gecko, so maybe he was previously a car insurance salesman?
望み通りにしてやろう。
Replacing Monster is the dull and boring Admiral Demon, played by Yosuke Naka.
お前は無能じゃ。わしは無能が嫌いじゃ。お助けください。シビレイジン。
For being named Demon, he sure as hell doesn't do much of anything but bark orders to his subordinates. Demon is also dumb. And I mean really dumb. This dude is so dumb that in one episode he flees from Skyrider on foot.
もうすぐこのアジトは大爆発する。ライダーめ吹っ飛んでしまえ。しまい。
Jumps into a jeep to get away, and then after Skyrider catches up to him, he teleports away.
さらばじゃ仮面ライダー。
The monsters of the week are your typical Kamen Rider fare of plants and animals. We had a monster dressed up as Santa Claus in the Christmas episode.
プレゼントやろ。ナメクジンのプレゼント。
A giant cockroach. A frog monster whose most astonishing moment is stepping on a landmine.
いいか、気合を入れて素早く走り抜けるんだ。わかったな。
Evil Skyrider clones that prove how colorblind people are.
おい、どれが本物かわからへんやないか、おい。
Skyrider has a red scarf. These guys have a yellow scarf. How do you not know the difference? And a bat who kills a dog. To be quite honest, the kaijins of this series are quite forgettable, as none of them do anything to stand out from other Kamen Rider villains. I mean, the only reason I remember this one is because Hiroshi made sure to get his point of being a hero across. I will give them credit for one thing. They had no qualms about outright murdering people regardless of age and gender. While not a monster, one of their associates is a dude who looks like he just got done poisoning Indiana Jones.
わしの計算は正しかったな。君の体は仮面ライダーのキックにびくともせぬ。君は怖いものなしだ。
On to the grunts. These bland soldiers are known as ant commandos. They, do that grunty stuff that grunts grunt about? I don't know. Even a kid could outsmart them.
どうも、おえ。これで袋のネズミだ。どこにもいません。おい、そんなバカな。
The effects and music. They are just as lackluster as the character development is. Shunsuke Kikuchi returned to helm the score of Skyrider, which made sense given he has done all of the previous Kamen Rider soundtracks.
Hora, お船が見えるでしょ。助けてのお父さん、助けて。
わかった。行くぞ。
Sadly, while there are a few new pieces of enjoyment to be found, most of the best compositions are those reused from previous Rider series. There are two opening and ending songs, all performed by Ichiro Mizuki with either the help of Kurogi73 or the Chirps. The first opening, Moreo Kamen Rider, is a pretty enjoyable opening theme even if it isn't the franchise's best. It's a bit catchy and gets you in the mood for the show. And then Otoko no Nawa Kamen Rider happened. Listening to nails on a chalkboard would have been far more invigorating than hearing this theme for the remaining 25 episodes. I think it's the part with the kids that really gripe me the most about this song. Haruka Naru Ai ni Kakate and Kagayaki Hachinen Rider make up the ending songs to the show, and both are unmemorable pieces of boredom. In the song's defense, that's Skyrider in a nutshell. It's like Toei just went out of their way to make the most unremarkable Kamen Rider series they could. And yet, I hear Super 1 is worse. As for the effects... yeah, about those. I do give Toei credit for trying something new, but apparently instead of trying to perfect their flying effects work, they chose to abandon it despite that being the whole theme of this Kamen Rider. It also didn't make sense when, as I mentioned earlier, you would have monsters that could fly, but Skyrider would not bother to do such. It made aspects of the show seem weird when he could have easily solved a problem if he just flew to it rather than rode his bike across town. Hell, he probably could have saved a lot more innocent bystanders if he had used his flying capabilities more. Now, there was some nice camera work to be had in a few battles. Moving past that, this show had nothing going for it that wasn't accomplished in other shows. There's even a questionable bike stunt. Wait, go back. What the hell was that? They were just like, and then they slid, they didn't... What? They didn't even touch him! The episodes. Skyrider started out really interesting with a shocking premiere, only to progressively get worse as it went along. As I said a few times, this show is unexceptional. It just repeats the same tired tropes that Kamen Rider had already done better and doesn't seem to know what it wants to be. Characters just up and disappear. The tone gets more lighthearted as the episodes continue, with the exception of a 6-episode anthology of episodes revolving around horror themes in the last quarter. There's little to nothing in the way of character development. It's just borderline boring. And then there is Gun-Gun-G. Clearly, no one at Toei had any idea what they were doing, and audiences could sense it early on, hence the poor ratings, and the writer changed a third of the way through. I'm honestly surprised it lasted 54 episodes given how bad it was received. With that said, there were a lot of really bad episodes, with the final 3-parter being the absolute bottom of the barrel. I know I've experienced my fair share of bad Kamen Rider finales, and I wasn't a fan of the finale to Stronger, but at least the finale to Stronger was like competently made. This one was just an all-around mess. I'm reluctant to only talk about this episode, however. Sans the finale, the most horrid episode was 25. Heavy Heavy, the 50-ton baby. The title probably tells you all you need to know. Hiroshi comes across a pregnant woman in pain and helps her to the hospital.
どうしました？赤ちゃんが生まれます。赤ちゃんが。
After the baby is born, the mother disappears, leaving the baby in the care of Hiroshi.
命名ボンゴ。事情があり姿を隠します。ボンゴをよろしくお願いします。筑波博様、エルサ、
Any normal person would question the sanity of a woman who leaves her baby in the care of a complete stranger. But that's not what Hiroshi does. Instead, he takes care of the child while acting like an idiot in the process.
ボンゴはまだ子供なんですよ。奴らお前のその優しさにつけ込もうとしてんだぞ。しかし先輩、子供のボンゴを倒すことは。じゃあどうするんだ。こんなものは罠に決まってるじゃないか。罠でもいい。ボンゴをお母さんに返します。
Turns out, the baby is actually a monster whose sole purpose is to piggyback ride Hiroshi so his weight can cost him his life. Or something.
That's the stupidest idea I've ever heard.
Don't waste your time questioning such a stupid-ass episode with stupid pacing and a stupid climax. My favorite episode is a bit tough because while there were episodes I really enjoyed, nothing stuck out to me as entirely memorable. Even as I looked at my notes for this review, I sat there staring at the episodes I marked as being favorites and tried to remember something about them without looking the episodes up. The only one I can truly say I remembered is First Appearance, Powered Skyrider's finishing move. Like the title implies, this is directly after Skyrider acquired his upgrade form. Admiral Demon uses a mummy monster to hypnotize children in order to attack adults, figuring no one would be unwilling to reciprocate the same to a child. One of Hiroshi's cheerleading squad's younger brother uncovers this plot and becomes a target of Neo Shocker. Naturally, Hiroshi must rescue him and everyone else that has been put under the mummy's control. Despite being in the second half, it is a pretty creepy episode with a lot of horror-filled imagery and tones. And the mummy monster is my favorite of the monsters of the week in this series, which adds another layer of coolness to it. The movie. Skyrider had a single theatrical film, which was not just an episode of the TV show Cropped. In this film, a group of scientists at a space station have discovered a new source of energy that can replace gasoline. This is not going to end well for them. A group of aliens attack the station. Doju! One of the scientists imprints the energy's formula into his dog's brain before sending the pooch to Earth, where his children and it become a target for both these alien creatures and Neo Shocker. Hiroshi teams up with the other riders to stop this threat, which leads to the aliens nearly getting away. They're going to get away. If only you had some sort of ability to fly up to their ship or something. Overall, the movie was not bad, just nothing extraordinary to stand out. I also found the leader of the aliens, Galaxy King, to make me think of Brain from the DC universe.
Did you think your pathetic resistance could actually stop what I have created?
A shame he didn't have a beret-wearing gorilla with him. The best scene is easily this moment when the Kaijin asks Galaxy King why he is even there.
何が銀河王だ。どうせどっかの星を食い詰めたならず者のくせに。
Overall, Skyrider sucked. What started out with a lot of promise ended up being just a bland experience. I can't say I hated my time with this show. There was a lot I did enjoy, but it wasn't worth it. I hate to say it, but I've got no choice other than to give Skyrider a reluctant 1 out of 5 Ganganjis. Only 1 Ganganji is enough. We don't need any more Ganganjis. Yeah. Skyrider. Such a disappointment. Again, I didn't hate the show, but if you are not a diehard Kamen Rider fan, do not watch this one. And if you are a diehard Kamen Rider fan, you've probably already watched it. Therefore, I don't really know what to recommend. I don't have a recommendation. I'm just at a loss for words on how this series was as a whole. Don't watch Skyrider. It's not worth it. It's not worth it at all. Until next time. Bye.
Rider!